Hey, hey, my theme song is super lit. And welcome to this episode of the Tynee Talks podcast, a podcast that entertains and educates. Remember, Tynee talks and you listen. Today I got a really dope episode recording because I am recording at Hello Studios in downtown Dallas, right? It has a spectacular view. It looks great. Like you can see the whole city, you can see the expressway. It just gives you a whole little vibe. You see over there, you can see that. I got a special guest in the building with me. I'll get to that in a minute. So yeah, I'm recording at Hello Studios in downtown Dallas. Shout out to Zoric. This is a really dope setup. And I'm sipping on rosé right now, you know? If you come record at Hello Studios, you're going to get you some rosé. Cheers. And there's no other person that I like to have a toast with looking at the beautiful city of Dallas. I would rather do it with nobody else but my love. The educated black man himself.
The black male perspective.
The black male perspective. Yeah. The greatest history teacher this side of heaven.
No.
The greatest history teacher at... I ain't gonna say it. I ain't gonna say it. Please welcome Mr. Terence Rogers.
Yo, what up, world? What up, Tynee Talkers?
Hey, talkers out there.
Yeah.
So we got a lot to talk about. Today's episode will be entitled Unconditional Parenting.
What?
And we're going to really get into how we are transitioning our motto, I guess you can say. We're transitioning our parenting model to unconditional parenting. And we're basing it off of the book entitled Unconditional Parenting by Alfie Kohn. Mm-hmm. So, Terence, let's tell the listeners out there a little background on what led us to unconditional parenting with the child that we are raising. Well, we're raising children, but the child that lives in the home with us. My wonderful, beautiful, bright AJ.
Wonderful, 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 wonderful AJ. How did we get here? You know, we've had this conversation before, and I halfway can't remember. I just remember, and you'll have to fill in the blanks.
All right.
I remember, I got it.
All right.
We, just dealing with, just the struggles of parenting, just being self-reflective of, decisions that we make and strategies that we use, because we just want to see the best for AJ, right?
Correct.
And we just knew that we just felt like we weren't getting, the results that we wanted.
That's a great way to put it. We weren't seeing the results because we were having a lot of challenges. And as a parent, my mom always said there is no guidebook to parenting. No. They don't write a book about... People write books.
Yeah, they do.
But it's like there's no blueprint. There is no one size fits all when it comes to parenting.
No. And in this book itself, anyone who will read it, you'll find out he doesn't offer a blueprint. Not at all. All he asks is that we just think about the way we've done it. Mm-hmm. What do we want out of our parenting relationship with our children, and analyze, is that how we're going to get what we really want? Like truly, what do we really want? And he can't give you the do this, do that, but he just gives you a paradigm shift ultimately. So going back to what you asked, we were just having a struggle. We always have our in-bed conversations. We just talking about
pillow talking.
Right. That's that Sunday morning, like just life, what we going to take to our prayer corners and all that beautiful stuff. Mm-hmm. And we was just dealing with it. And then I came across somebody on Facebook, a woman advertising just some parenting classes, and then I signed up for it just to go see. It was free. She put up, are you tired of the kids talking back? Are you tired of having to yell and say something 25 times?
Absolutely.
Yeah. I was like, you got the answer? She got the answer. Today she got the answer. And it's free. So,
But pause. So when he's like, we're having these conversations in the morning and then this ad pops up on Facebook, that's how you know these phones be listening to us. Because like you said, we were going to our prayer club. Like seriously, he was going to pray in his corner. I was going to pray in my corner. We were praying together. We were writing in our prayer journals. Any parent knows that you can't raise these kids without prayer.
Right. Exactly.
You need the Lord.
You need something. You need somebody.
You need the higher power. So Terence took the class.
Yeah, I took the class, and then what I ended up doing was, because she was offering stuff, for like money, like just like, if you just pay this amount, you'll have access to me, and I'll answer your questions, and I'll tell you ABC 1, 2, 3. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, oh, I gotta pay you. You're just gonna like be my online tutor, and I gotta come running to you, and then you'll give me like once a month I get some downloads that I can get, but I gotta pay you. Mm-hmm. Well, you know me. Let me see if it's out there for free. Who put the PDF out there?
That's how they reel you in. Like, I'm only give you a little snippet. You gotta pay for it.
You're not gonna get me, because I know somebody out there is gonna upload it. And that's what ended up happening. Google. I started Googling the concepts that she was talking about, and ding, this guy pops up, and I started reading like his blog, and I'm like, oh, dude wrote a book. Where this book at? Mm-hmm. And then I found, and I ordered it and went and picked it up the very next morning, and I just dived right in. That's how we got here.
He dived right in, and he would tell me, things from the book, and it was applicable not only to us raising our son, but it was also applicable to how we were reared as children and how it shows up into your adult life. Mm-hmm. So we would be going on these walks, and he would be telling me stuff about the book, about, kids that were praised or using a reward system or whatever the case, and how it shows up in your adult world and the job, and you're expecting to get praise all the time, or you're expecting to get a reward, for something. And so it really showed up. But a little bit of more background information. Terence and I have a blended family, AJ is my biological child, and technically AJ is his stepson. And, there's conversations that have to be had when you're allowing another adult who is not the bio parent to discipline your child. So he used to feel very uncomfortable about maybe his input, and I didn't really know where to put his input. And so you want to talk a little bit to that dynamic?
It was just... it was weird. I had never been in it. She had never been in it. We never been in a situation where we had to form these new relationships. And I know from your angle, yeah, this is your baby, and this has been your baby for 10 years.
Well, 7 when we met, but
but yeah, exactly. Right. But it's your baby.
He's my human. He's mine.
And I have 2 other boys, and my boys are older. I have he is 21. I'll be messed up. He's 22.
Yeah.
He's 22. I got a 22-year-old and a 16-year-old. So you could kind of say that I've reached like the end of the whole parenting. I'm ready to send the last one off to college, and so it's like, oh, okay, I'm dating this lovely woman. She got a son. We get closer, and it's like, oh, okay, I'm going to have to be involved. Well, we're going to pull out of my bag of tricks. And it's like, oh, try that. No, that didn't work. That usually worked. That worked with my boys. You know what I'm saying?
Again, so he thought like, okay, what happened with his boys? And he has some great boys. They are great, well-rounded, just great kids. And AJ's a great kid as well.
Right.
But every kid is different. Again, like
Right.
I said earlier, there's no one size fits all. So some
Right.
of the strategies that applied and worked well with his sons, just AJ is his own man.
He's his own man. AJ is AJ.
He's his own person.
That's right. And you're going to respect that. And that's what I respect, is like, he is who he is, and you're going to respect that for who he is, and you're going to give him that. And so I had to eventually give him that. And so still, it was rough for a few years. It was just rough, because then all of the old, now that we've read this book, like the old ways of handling things started coming. At some point it's gonna be, oh, don't talk to her like that, and then I'm gonna be the tough guy. And then it's gonna be, oh, maybe I should. Even getting to the whooping, I halfway didn't like whooping my own children, and I'm like, man, should I whoop them?
It became we tried to do everything, guys. Like we tried to do good cop, bad cop.
Right.
We tried to do wait till your father gets home type stuff. Like, you know what? I'ma tell him when he get.
Oh, I love it. We went through every sitcom we could who had parents in the house.
Literally.
Be like James. He gonna be like James. He gonna be scared when you come home because Terence like James.
Right. He gonna be James Evans and like, no, maybe you need to be Carl Winslow. Okay. Maybe you need to be Uncle Phil because you ain't the bio dad. You know what I mean? So we just had.
I just couldn't be Bill. And I'm not dissing him, for what we talk about. I'm just saying that dude was super, super chill. I didn't know how to do that.
Yeah. Bill was chill. Claire had this way, like when we say AJ is his own person, like how Claire would give a look and you straightened up. I was the same way with my mom. My mom could give a look and you straightened up. But AJ like, okay.
I gotta look too.
We gonna be Diddy and that meme. We gonna stare at each other.
Yeah.
So what is we doing, right?
Exactly.
And he's such a bright kid, right? He's very bright. He's very smart. He likes to articulate his thoughts. He wants to be able to, express how he feels. And so parents have to be able to do that. I was raised in a household that I guess you could say was very liberal. My mom allowed us to, she made a decision. I could ask why. And it wasn't considered back talk.
Right.
I could, express myself and it wasn't considered a bad thing. My sister and I were known around as the mouthy kids. Like Beverly's daughters, they mouthy, because she didn't restrict us if we had an opinion or we had an idea. It wasn't a kid stays in their places. Like they have an opinion, they have feelings, and I'm gonna honor their feelings. I'm gonna respect their feelings. And so when Terence and I were dating, I was trying to do that with AJ. He looked at it as talking back because how he was raised. So can you get a little bit into how you were raised, and then you're looking at me, single mom, coming in to the fold, and you're like, okay, what?
Well, and I'm not even saying that your mom wasn't typical. It's just that, there's degrees to this, right? And so I just know there were certain ways of talking to my mom. It's not that I could not, give my opinion or ask questions. It's the tone. And I just felt, I was raised about that tone. Like, you better mind your tone. You know what I'm saying? How you think you're talking to me? And you can, when you speak, you can speak with a certain kind of energy. And I was raised to make sure I maintain the right kind of tone when I talk to my mom.
Right.
And so, and then, I knew other kids who, it wasn't even about the tone. You have no words to say. Like, mom says this, dad says this, and your response is action. Like, no words. And so, yeah, that's how I was raised. And then seeing, like, AJ, it was like, yo, this little brother right here. Like,
okay.
You know what I'm talking to you like that?
And I didn't look at it like that. But I do understand the tone part. So I didn't mind him, asking me questions or wondering why. But sometimes his tone could be a little sketch, right? And so as we get into parenting and then we move in as a blended family, we like I said, we tried so many strategies and we wanted to be like we tried every every sitcom that we could think of and all of this stuff, right? So I came across this video with Kev on stage, and he was kind of doing a juxtaposition of white parenting versus black parenting, right? And so as Terence was reading the book Unconditional Parenting, we kept both saying to ourselves, well, this seemed to might only work for white people, right? We kept saying, now, when you gonna get to the black? Because it's different for the black, right?
Right.
And so I'm gonna play this clip here that kind of speaks to that sentiment. Right. So, Kim, in a funny way, was juxtapositioning, white parenting versus black parenting. And that white parent in that video just saying, he asked the daughter to take out the trash, and she said, okay, I will after I take out the trash. And, the funny thing is, black parents are like, now you going to do it when I say do it right now. And Terrence and I, with AJ, had learned that we needed to allow him to have time to adjust. I guess you could say an adjusting period to what we asked him to do. And do you want to speak a little bit to what we just heard and how we're applying the principles of Alfie and how we kind of understand and identify with the white parent, right?
Okay, it's kind of, I always wanted to say this on air. We're going to unpack that.
Come on, unpack it.
Okay, so my man basically did something that is recommended, just a thought that comes out of this book. And so, yes, you gave your child, a directive. You're like, I need this to happen. And that's fine. You need things to happen. There's responsibilities in the house and what have you. And kids need to do them. And sometimes those responsibilities are based upon time. Like, it needs to be done at this time. It needs to be done in this way. And they got to learn how to do things at the right time and in the right way. Great. Did taking the trash out need to happen at that time? You know what I'm saying? If you know that the truck is coming in the next 15 minutes, yeah. Mm-hmm. But then anyway. So what my man is Alfie Kohn is saying in the book is that we have to learn how. This is a phrase that we even talked about, that the idea about controlling kids, like controlling their time, controlling what they do, that's part of the flaw in parenting. Mm-hmm. It's like trying to rule them, like to show them you're the boss, being the tough guy. You're gonna do what I say because I said so. Mm-hmm. And we was raised this way, right? I do it because I said so. But ultimately, what my man is arguing in the book, like he's saying my man, what Alfie Kohn.
Alfie Kohn, our man.
Yeah, is what he's saying in the book is that we have to show kids how to do things. Mm-hmm. And he used the juxtaposition of doing to them or doing with them. Mm. Doing to them is like, I'm going to do something to you to get what I want out of you. I'm either going to punish you or reward you, but I'm going to do something to you to get a certain kind of behavior. He talks about how that comes out of behaviorism. Me being a teacher, taking educational psychology, I'm familiar with the term, with the whole, the dog and Pavlov's dog and all that stuff right there. Just like you give him rewards, he starts to salivate because he expects it. All that behaviorism stuff. And then he points it out. He was like, yeah, but that's for animals. Mm-hmm. And when he said that, I'm like, oh.
Yeah. And he gave the example, about the reward system, about how animals are trained, right? Mm-hmm. And basically it's like, our children are not animals.
Right.
To be given a reward and a pat on their head and to tell me they have thoughts, opinions, feelings. They're more nuanced than an animal.
So because that child had like a thought and a feeling, like the parent understood, you really were asking them at a bad time to do it. Now, if you are still needed to be done, all it's saying is you don't have to control the moment. You don't have to be so in control where you make them just to show them I'm the boss. You do it because I said so. Mm-hmm. There can be times where it needs to happen, but even that can be a conversation. the thing is when there's conflict in those moments, is then what do we start doing? So when we come to these moments where we're like, hey, child, I need you to do X, Y, Z, or not do X, Y, Z, and there becomes conflict over that, it's really now it comes down to, okay, so what are we going to do? Are you going to try to take control of the situation and show the kid, I'm bigger, I'm stronger, I can do all these things, I can force these things on you, and I threaten you first, scare the hell out of you next, hurt you, you know what I'm saying? Or I can give you presents because you listen, and give you rewards because you give you an allowance, and all that and whatever stuff. And so it's what we do when we come to those moments of conflict when they don't agree.
Right. Something that you said, well, something that we both learned in the book is that when you're raising children, you're trying to build their character and you want them to do it out of their heart, right? We want to talk about their intentions.
Because it's right.
Because we want them to do it because it's the right thing to do. And when you start working on, as you mentioned, the reward, are they doing it because this is the right thing to do, or are they doing it because they think that they're going to get a reward? And then when that reward stops, are they going to, when they get into their moment of decision, are they going to, if they know that there's no reward on the end, are they going to do the right thing?
Right. And he talks a lot about that. That's all in there. Just talking about the whole idea. If we think rewarding them, that's what's going to get them there, it's temporary. It ends up being a temporary win. You're not really getting them to understand the right and wrong, or just the respect of the situation. You know, it's just understanding that a household got to run, and everybody got something they got to do in the house to make the household run, and you have to respect that you're part of it. And so here's your portion of the responsibilities. We can talk about the when, you know what I'm saying, when it's gonna happen and the how, and we can make sure it's right. But it's that control part, like you gotta do it now versus, okay, I need you to make sure, like you say with your mom said you have to clean the dishes, but you had to understand it in your house that you just couldn't go to sleep.
Yeah, you just gotta do it. When I was growing up, I hated dishes, FYI. And my mom, her thing was, because my sister always said she treated me different. She said I was spoiled, but whatever. Tomato. But my mom's thing with dishes for me, and I don't remember what the rule was with my sister. With me, it was you got to do the dishes. You just got to do it before you go to sleep, right? Where some parents are like, you better do the dishes now. You got to do it now. And my mom's thing was like, I'm gonna give you, what's the word I'm looking for? Autonomy. Yes. My mom gave me autonomy to be like, okay, this is your task. Just do it within this realm before you go to sleep. And later on in life, as a grown-up, well, I thought I was grown. When I was 21 years old, mind y'all, I hated washing dishes. I despised it. As much as I could get out of it, I would. When I was 21 years old, I got a job at the same hospital that my mom worked at. And my job was in the dietary department. And guess what I had to do, y'all?
Bust them suds.
I had to bust them suds. I'm talking about nasty pile to the top, carts. And my mom would come down on her break and laugh at me. Like, see, you got to wash them dishes now, right? Rest in peace, Baba. I miss But eventually, you're going to have to wash them dishes,
right.
You know? So it was something that we could laugh about. But something that, Terence, that you always mention, and I don't know if it was a quote, but one of the things you always say is that parenting is a revolutionary act.
Oh, yeah, it definitely is.
And it is. And one thing we have to remember in unconditional parenting and raising children, especially when they're children, they've never been here before. So whenever you had your child, all right, you've been on the earth for several years. You understand things, you've experienced things, you're more in the know. So sometimes when we find ourselves getting frustrated with our kids, we have to remember, hey, they haven't been on the earth this long, and we're still in teaching mode. Even as an adult, when we're on the job or just in life, when we're with our spouses or our friends, we're ever learning, we're ever evolving, and we're all still teachable. So we have to give our children a little bit more grace, right? To understand that we're still teaching them. They make a mistake, instead of getting super rah-rah at them or angry with them, hey, they may have not known. Or maybe they know because you did tell them before, but they made a mistake. So we have to be very mindful and careful because we could be damaging our children. And we could be so abusive towards them, or as you were saying early, we're stronger than them, we're bigger than them, and we're using like force tactics on them that either they'll think these force tactics are okay, or they may display it on other humans in a different
Waiting
form.
for a weaker person that they can do it too.
Yeah.
And just thinking that's normal. A word that you use, though, which is very central to what Kohn talks about in his book, is autonomy. Because ultimately, what are you as an adult? You're autonomous. I mean, for the most part, every adult wants autonomy. At your job, you don't want to be micromanaged, right? In your life, you don't want to be controlled. You want to have the freedom to make decisions how you see fit in your life. Well, to be that kind of person, you have to be shown. And that's how children get there. And you can either show them that life is about control and life is about hierarchies and power displays, or you can show them something different about how to get to an autonomous situation. So you teach them autonomy by granting them some as they get older. As they become more understandable of things, you start to let the string go a little bit, the leash or whatever you want to call it, and give them room to operate and let go of the control. And be patient. Be patient because you know they're going to make mistakes. If you understand that kids, you know, they have impulse issues because it's their brain, right? They're impulsive. You know that they are very self-centered. You know, the world revolves around them. You know what I'm saying?
They don't come out these perfect little beings that we want them to be, or these cookie cutter children, or the Leave It to Beaver like perfect kid that Disney sells us or Nickelodeon sells us. And I think that's what people are looking for in their kids. And when they don't find it, they get really angry.
Like they're not short adults.
Yeah, they're not. They're children.
You really have to show them and lead them into adulthood. You know, now we get into, you know, rites of passage, and just you show kids how to be adults. Whether you have a rites of passage program or grow up in that kind of culture, you still have to show kids how to be an adult. You're going to show them one way or another. You're going to either show them it's all about basic parenting, it's just lovable bullying, or it can be something different, you know. So when we look at people and say, oh, they don't whip their kids, we might think that they're soft. Well, not necessarily. They could be.
Yeah.
You can be stern without whipping.
Yeah. So let's get into the disciplining, right? And black parenting versus white parenting, and in conversations that we had, a lot of black people don't understand that our way of rearing our children comes out of slavery. And chattel slavery, not just slavery, chattel slavery, right? I'm gonna beat you into submission. I'm gonna beat you to you're no longer Kunta, until I'm gonna beat you to now you're calling yourself Toby.
Yeah, doing too, behaviorism. The pain will make you stop doing what you're doing. That's the logic. So my man hit me with a brick, right? My man Alfie Kohn.
Alfie Kohn, the author of the book.
He said something to the effect of, if you want to show someone love, why would you use violence as a way and then say that that's the way it's supposed to be shown? Like, what?
That deserves a call. Like, that stung me, right? Because a lot of people can relate. That my mom used to whip me. I got whoopings, right? I got whoopings. And I'm talking about my mama was heavy-handed. Right, my sister would say that I didn't get as many whoopings as her and my cousins, but I got whoopings and they were memorable. But one thing my mom would say when she was done was, "I whooped you because I love you."
Right.
I whooped you because if I don't whoop you, you're gonna either end up in hell or jail. And you see them kids that didn't get whoopings or their mama let them do whatever, they in jail, they in the grave. You know, this was like her logic. So I carried that. So I want y'all to know that before we got to this unconditional parenting vibe we on, I was whooping ass.
Right, you know. And so you getting right back to the question that you asked is like, so the whooping part with black people, it's not, and I want to be very clear, even my man in the book, he doesn't say that because you whoop your kid, you don't love them.
Right.
Let's be very clear. You do love your child. It's are they interpreting that by your action? Is the question.
Yeah.
Just because you said so after you whooped that ass, is that what they're interpreting from the action? That's really simple. Is that what a kid will interpret from that action? You say, oh, they just don't understand. So here's what I understand about adults. And this is how we get to the race thing. He won't say it. In the book, me and you laughed when we were walking. Right. I said, he won't say what I understand.
Yeah.
He just says, yeah, it's true. You know, he laid out the data and everything. Yeah. Black people do whoop a little ass, right? And
we whoop more ass than our counterparts.
Right. Black people is about that ass whoopers. And he even lays out the data to support that. And then he lays out this other piece of data. And the black kids don't really interpret it like abuse. They take it like, okay, that's love, right?
Yeah, I took it as, Bobby, you do love me. After I went in my room and said bad things in my head about her.
But he also threw something else out there that was the point that made me say, oh, slavery's in the room. He used an example of an ethnic group, I want to say from Kenya, and talked about the ways that they parented their kids and the way they use, like, giving their kids autonomy and being, what was it? The example he used was amongst black parents, they'll say, yeah, let that baby cry. Yeah. They'll get spoiled. They don't let them cry. But he said in that culture, in Kenya, these people were like, no, your baby needs to feel comforted. And you should smother your baby with love, basically.
Yeah.
Because they need to know that you are there. And so it comes right down to, what's the message are you sending? A kid who's crying in a crib needs to be attended to, right?
That's right.
Every behavior is on purpose. And a baby who's crying in a crib needs to be attended to. They just can't express themselves because they don't know how.
They don't have the language yet. Their language is crying or screaming or hollering.
Right, exactly. That's what it is. And so even that, and he even starts to break that down. And so when he said that, but when he used that African example, I said, I'll be damned.
Yeah.
The only difference between us and them is this imposition of slavery.
Yeah.
And we learned a model from them.
Black Americans. And
then we use that model as a way to keep our children in line, to save them from who? Them.
From them. We use what they use against us to save our kids from them.
We don't want you to have to experience them.
Yeah. And then that's where that births, right, respectability, politics, and all of that stuff. It births so much more. Hold your pants up because of the white gaze.
What they gonna do to you?
What they gonna do to you if you don't wear your hair right, or if you don't talk a certain way, right? Not talking white, but talking, correct grammar. If you don't do this. And we're always, adding more things onto the long list of things. And it's birthed out of all of this, and it starts in parenting our kids. Right. And we want you ever notice we go to the store and that white kid is just running around all free, and we're looking like, and we're telling our kid no. And our kid is looking at that kid like, I just want to be free too.
And it's not even that white kid or that white parent is doing it right. And I don't want anyone to think that we're saying, oh, let your kids run wild. That's not what it is either. You're going to teach your kids how to do things. You're going to show them and model for them and talk to them and get them to understand why things need to be done. See?
For example,
why?
Right, because we don't want to put labels on people or call people ghetto and things. And I use the example when I told you I saw some young ladies out in public with bonnets on. And, Terence hates the word ghetto. And I was just like, that's just, no. And I had to explain to him, well, when I was growing up, ghetto wasn't the term. And I was like, my grandma was born in the 1930s, right? She didn't use terms like that's ghetto. It was more so how you should look in the house versus how you should look outside of the house. And I had to explain to him, like, your bonnet and your pajamas, that's inside the house clothes. Yeah. And then there's outside the house clothes.
Right.
And so that goes just along the whole line of just teaching your children how to behave somewhere, right? So we're not saying act like the white parent and let your kid run rampant in the store knocking all the toys over. No, we're not saying that, but just teaching your kid in the house, parenting, right? Parenting your children, teaching your children, guiding your children, and say, hey, in the house, certain things are accepted. Out in public, other things are not accepted. It's a communication piece.
And you can explain these things to them. You know, you can speak to them in the way they understand to explain. They might not like it. You know, some things you just have to enforce, and you know, and that's the whole magic of it. What do you do when you have conflict? He doesn't give you the answer. He just says, find the answer that shows the kids how to be with love that doesn't contradict. The ultimate thing is ultimately, because the name of the book is Unconditional Parenting.
Yes.
He says that basically kids need to know that we love them unconditionally. We put no conditions on our love for them. None. Not your behavior, none of that. So so the ultimate goal is your actions should always express to your kids, I love you.
Right.
I love you.
And I think, you know, I'm Christian. I'm a believer, and I was raised Christian. And I think people fail to realize with religion that God loves us unconditionally. But some of the parameters that we put on ourselves through religion, it will lead you to believe that God doesn't love us unconditionally. And that can't be true because mamas love their serial killer son.
Exactly. Right. No, officer, he's not
He
here.
didn't do it. You've been selling drugs for 30 years. At your mama house. My baby didn't do it, okay?
What comedian was that who cracked that joke about? It was just like,
LaBelle Crawford.
House, right?
No, officer, he wasn't. Then she go flush it. You better get that shit out my house, right?
Exactly.
Your mom, children know their moms to be unconditional lovers, right?
Yeah.
And my mom used to say that your mom is your first guide, right? Because she teaches you about God. And she shows you the way, you know, to God. And your mom, you honor her that way. And your children should know, especially at a young age, that there's nothing that you can do to separate you from, that they can do that can separate them from your love.
Right.
And he talks about that in the book on a section called Love Withdrawal, which was birthed out of the idea of timeout, which also came from behaviorism, which also came from animals. Put you in timeout. And to a kid, remember y'all, we are grown-ups, but the kid is a kid. So them being withdrawn from you or sat in a corner has made them to feel like, oh, because I didn't do this thing, mama or daddy or caregiver does not love me. For
this moment of time, for however long it is, you know, they feel like they question whether they're loved or not because they are children. Because ultimately they just want to know that they're going to be loved and accepted, right? And so once again, it's a paradigm shift. You can teach your kids how to behave, you know what I'm saying, in the way that your family respects, you know what I'm saying, without sending mixed messages. You know what I'm saying? And withdrawing love is, because it's called unconditional love, that withdrawing love to a kid is terrifying.
It's terrifying.
It's terrifying.
What if God withdrew his love right now? We would all drop dead.
And he does bring that up, you know, for the Christians out there, that he does mention that you notice sometimes that you see this behavior in people who practice Western religions like Christianity, because there is an element of Christianity that makes God seem very conditional. Like, you gonna do this or you going to hell. At the same time, there's also the same message of, you know, Jesus Christ. Like, there's this unconditional love. And it's there. You can find both there. And ultimately, I think we know that God is not conditional. God is not human. And so...
God...
humans
applause. Applause.
Right.
God ain't human.
Right.
We be trying to make God think like we think because as humans... That is a thing. Although this book is called Unconditional Parenting, we are limited as humans, and we do have conditions. So, and God does not have those same limitations that we have. So he operating in a completely different realm than we're functioning in. But you know, our goal, right, is to be Christ-like or God-like, and so we try to be unconditional as he is, or forgiving and grace-giving, right? And all of those things. Wow, that was good right there.
But since you mentioned that we are human and we have limitations, so we have to say to everyone that Our limitations is gonna be sometimes we get mad.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you cool. It's okay. You get mad. Just don't hurt nobody. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Be careful about the words you're gonna say. Don't destroy the kids' self-esteem. You know what I'm saying? Don't make them think you hate them. You're gonna be mad. You're gonna be impatient. You're gonna be tired. You're gonna be like, oh, I can't deal with this right now.
Right. One of the examples that he used in the book, right, when we talk about this idea of love withdrawal or unconditional parenting, he used the example of his daughter, like, being basically a complete jerk earlier in the day.
Yeah.
But their routine was for him to read a book to her every night, tuck her in before she went to bed.
Right.
And so he was really upset, right? Because your kids will take you there.
Show out, right?
Show her whole ass, okay? And when it was time for bedtime, because kids are like that, right? They can raise hell all day and still be looking like, I love you. Let's keep it moving, right? And so she looking at him all doughy-eyed, like, okay, daddy, time for reading time. And he really, for like a split second, he looking like, I ain't about to read to you. But then he had to remember, unconditional love. This is our routine. I can't withdraw something that was unrelated to this current situation. That's what he talked about, like taking the whole reward and punishment system, taking things from the child that's not related to the moment. Like, whatever consequences should happen, right? But let it relate to what's happening at that moment. It doesn't have to carry over to something else, right? And so now when AJ be doing so, AJ likes for me to tuck him in. And like sometimes if he been and did something, and so sure enough, when he get out his shower, he says, Mom, are you gonna tuck me in? And if he been and got on my nerves, Terence will look at me and be like, I'm giving a look, y'all. And I go in there, and all those feelings subside, because I know in that moment, he just my baby who want his mama to tuck him in, say our prayers, and say goodnight.
Right.
You know what I mean?
That's how y'all. That's right. That's the love language. Right? That's how you know you love him. And you know, we wake up tomorrow and figure out a new way.
We figure out a new way. And again, as you talk about violence, because that's a key word. Words are powerful. Words are important when we're using violence against our kids. We don't like it when that girl gets in a relationship with a guy and he's beating her butt and she says, but he loves me. Because we ourselves, out of our grown-ass mouths, say, girl, he don't love you when he's whooping your ass.
Right, exactly. Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, lastly, to kind of close out the conversation, we talked about the class dynamic that formulates how we discipline, and as it relates to unconditional parenting. You want to touch a little bit on the more money we got, the less whoopings we dishing out.
That's just something he puts out. You'll check it out in the book. He really just lays out the data that shows that ultimately the higher you go up in class, the less the violent incidents as far as like disciplining kids. And he's basically saying you're dealing with people on the lower end of the spectrum who has all types of other pressures in their lives, and patience issues, just because of how hard it is in this society, to be poor. And so you'll see that as people get a little more freedom because they got a little more money, they can afford to be a little more patient, and so with black people existing mostly as working class people, you can see kind of how that pressure is on us, but then the flaw in wealthier people is that they still think that they can just buy their kids love and and then you end up having the spoiled brats, who don't have love, right? They don't got no good character,
basically
living like the Roys.
Okay, watch Succession, y'all.
Right, but there's a class element, but the class element is really about the pressures that this system, capitalism sucks. That this,
okay,
I have to say
that's another episode.
that the pressures that the society put on us, because he even talks about that. The differences in an individualistic capitalist society versus a collective society where it's all about the we and not about the me.
Where the term "it takes a village" to raise a child is real.
It's real,
and
as opposed
cliche.
to, don't touch my kid. You don't know you. But I understand that in modern times. Don't we understand why everybody can't, right?
Yeah. So basically, to close out this talk, what we want to take away is you have your own journey as parents, and you may not get to where we are, or not to saying that our way is the best way or the wrong way or the right way.
We still working.
But we still working out our kinks, right? We still working on. We had a reward system.
Yep.
And then it's got to the point where he was
gaming the system.
He was gaming the system.
Hacked it. And that's why the reward system.
We canceled it.
We canceled it because we saw that he hacked it.
So this parenting thing is trial and error. There is no handbook, but you can love your children unconditionally.
Yes.
And always leave them with the sense of feeling that they know that you will always be there for them. And that's a security blanket for children.
Mm-hmm.
Terence works in education. I work in education. And there's a lot of loveless children out there who turn into adults seeking and yearning for love. And you don't want to be on the adult, because people are more harsh to adults seeking it than they are to children. So start at that young age.
And before you close, I just point out that that's like a recurring theme in the book, is that what kind of adults do you end up being when you've been raised this way? Your adults who need a lot of therapy.
Therapy, child.
Because life was hard, right?
Coming to a Tynee Talks episode near you, child.
Right.
So, this was a really great episode, Terence. Thank you for being a guest. Thank you for being on this parenting journey with me as we discover, through prayer and supplication, child, how to raise a little black boy in 21st century America. It is revolutionary. It is exciting because he's brilliant.
Yes.
He's fun. He is his own man. He
out there tearing something up now. We gotta go.
We're gonna have to close up. But in true Tynee Talks fashion, now is our time to do our shout outs. So who you shouting out?
I'm shouting out AJ.
Shout out to AJ.
I told AJ this last night. Because I had to take AJ to the Mbungi. I had to take him to the village to help have other men talk to him about a problem we were having in the home. And I told AJ, I just told AJ that I thank him for challenging me to be a better father. So shout out to AJ. Shout out to
AJ. That's so sweet. That might look about a tear to my eye. And amongst other things. Wow, that was so sweet. Wow, okay, so my shout out to AJ, who made me a mother 10 years ago. And this has been quite the journey with him. If you follow me on social media, you know that I have my Chronicles of AJ. He keeps me entertained. He keeps me on my toes. He keeps me in prayer. Got my prayer life poppington. And he keeps me young. He keeps me innovative. He calls me a boomer. I keep telling him that I'm not a boomer. I'm a millennial. But he don't care. He insults me calling me a boomer. So shout out to AJ. Shout out to my mother. May she rest in sweet heavenly peace for raising me. Shout out to Hello Studios for the opportunity to record this episode in this lovely studio. They were hospitable. Zurich is kind. Like I said, it's a great view, great sound system. So if you're in the Dallas-Fort Worth area and you're looking for a place or space to record your podcast, or you're trying to start up a podcast, I would encourage you to come to Hello Studios. And let me give you guys the contact for Hello Studios. Hello Studios is located at 1910 Pacific Avenue, Suite 1850. That's Dallas, Texas, 75201. They got refreshments. I mean, the setup is just dope. Ain't it dope, babe? Like, it's a cool ass vibe up in here. So remember, if you're also trying to start your own podcast, be sure to go to Amazon.com and pick up the Tynee Talks Easy Guide to Starting Your Podcast.
A whole book.
I wrote a whole book. I'm a whole author out here, a whole one. Period. So shout out to Hello Studios, and we'll just close out on that note.